This podcast is brought to you from Grantwood AEA, an educational service agency that supports school districts in eastern Iowa with a focus on equity, excellence, and efficiency in education for all children.
Welcome to episode 53 of the EdTech Takeout, the podcast that serves up bite-sized technology tips for teachers. My name's Jonathan Wiley, and I'm joined today by two of my favorite people. Let's start with Mindy Carney.
Oh, does that mean I'm your favorite?
I said let's start with Mindy Carney.
Last time you said that, I was not. I was the second person in line. So Corey's got to work her way up. Because Corey Rogers is here too, new member from the team. She's here to talk computer science with us today.
Corey, why don't you introduce yourself, tell people who you are and what you do and what you did.
I'm Corey Rogers. I'm new to the team.
Yeah, I think I said that. Keep going.
Yeah, you said that. And I'm just working my way up to that favorite spot.
Yeah, it's not that great up here.
I was a school improvement and instructional technology consultant at Central Rivers, which is another AEA in Iowa. And then before that, I was a middle school media specialist in Waterloo, Iowa. And prior to that, I was a STEM and computer science teacher in the Detroit suburbs. So if anyone from Michigan is listening, I was in the West Bloomfield School District. There.
Is that upper or lower peninsula?
That is the lower peninsula.
I have no geography when it comes to Michigan.
So not conducive to podcast at all, but if you hold your hand up,
okay.
Right if you're from Michigan,
Left hand?
It doesn't matter, I suppose.
Okay.
But
everybody's doing it. People, if you're driving, put your hands back on the wheel. Okay.
So Detroit is down here, kind of where your thumb is.
Okay.
And I grew up in the northern part of the lower peninsula in Houghton Lake, Michigan. So it's up here.
Oh, burr. Okay.
Yeah. And then, so really fun. This is super fun. You're going to edit this out, but
probably.
That's okay. So there's a very famous technical university in the upper peninsula in Houghton, Michigan, which is like super way up, always snowy.
Okay.
And every year in August, families would stop and be like, "Where's the university?" And they'd stop at Houghton Lake, and we'd be like, "Oh no, you've got like 8 to 10 more hours of driving, friends,
really,
before you get to
keep going
until you get up to Michigan Tech." So sorry.
Interesting.
Michigan Tech. Anyway. I got a new computer, folks.
You did get a new computer. I got a new computer too, but I'm recording on the old one right now.
Yeah, I'm using my old one still too. Right now, but
I get the impression people were really worried after we talked about the Mac and PCs last time, and they were worried about how long these were going to last. But new computers are here.
Concern. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
We're good to go.
And we're happy again.
Yes. Well, I was a little upset today, but I got it figured out. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, should we start with news and follow-up?
Let's do it.
Okay, so I saw this come across when I opened up my Google Calendar. I also got an email, I think, that SMS notifications are going to go away January 7th. Do you have this turned on?
Well, I was going to ask you guys if you had ever used that or not before.
Never.
No, and I think that's why it's getting turned off.
Maybe. I don't even know that I knew it existed until I was showing calendar, I don't know, like a year ago or something. I'm like, oh, look at that. You can get text messages from your Google Calendar. I just get notifications because I have it on my phone.
Which is exactly what Google said. They said people were using the notifications more. I do know a couple of teachers that were using it, and they used to get text messages on the way to school or something.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
a little reminder.
Yeah, I feel like notifications are all people need now.
Yeah, I agree.
So it looks like January 7th, 2019, just a PSA that the SMS notifications are going away.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. Oh, we saw this one on Twitter.
Yeah,
you were speaking French on Twitter the other day. It came in. I'm like, what? Are we speaking French on Twitter now?
Oh, maison petit.
Yeah. I don't even know what that means, but okay.
So one of our listeners, Rachel Smith, tweeted at us to remind us, or to tell us, because I didn't know this either. But when we talked about the live titles in the Apple Clips app, you can do live titles in a foreign language, which I think is kind of fun.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it's kind of neat.
Yes, there's a little globe button or something in the corner, and you tap that and you can change the language, and then the iOS device will listen for words in that language that you chose, and it will
So you don't have to choose a language?
You do have to choose the language ahead of time.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then it will transcribe into the language that you're talking in.
So what did you say in French? What did you say?
A little bit. Petite is little, right?
Correct,
Just
yes.
a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Okay. That was... Okay. Continue. This one I don't know anything about.
So next one is, I saw this from Leslie Fisher. She tweeted this out, and she did a blog post on it, and I just thought it was kind of interesting. I showed it to Stacey yesterday, and I'm like, did you know this existed? And she's like, I think I did, but so I don't know how new this is, so I'll just give it out there. You know how when you take a PDF and you upload it to Google Drive, and then you open that PDF into Google Docs, and it kind of gives you all the text out of it. It does. It takes all the text out of the PDF. So you've got the text version, then you've got this kind of weird kind of image thing as well on the document. So Leslie Fisher was playing around with this, and she's got one of those Rocketbook notebooks, like Stacey has.
Yes. She is the Rocketbook queen, right?
I think she is.
Yeah.
And so what she did was she took a page of her handwriting.
Yeah.
She took a picture of it with the Rocketbook notebook app, which saved it as a PDF into Google Drive.
Right.
So she's got not a PDF of text, a PDF of handwriting. And then when she took that PDF of handwriting and opened that into Google Docs, it converted the handwriting into text. Which I'd never seen before.
I didn't know that existed.
So if you look on the show notes there, I put a little link that says example.
Yeah.
Because I did it myself too. And you'll see my handwriting as a PDF, and then when I uploaded it to Google Drive, that's what it changed it into text.
Nice.
Oh, I saw that on the table yesterday. I wondered what that was.
A piece of paper that said, this is a test of my handwriting. So, yeah. It has to be a PDF, because the first time we did it, I think it was an image, and it doesn't do it with an image. It doesn't know what to do with an image, but it does it with the PDF. If you open a PDF of handwriting into a Google Doc, it'll give you editable text. So, I think it's kind of interesting.
That is kind of interesting, because Keep does that too, right?
Keep does something similar to that,
so
with,
I wonder if
images.
that's how, if they got pulled over into Keep,
same
then
kind of
if
technology.
It's an older, right. All right, well, I've been holding on to this one for a little bit, because you know that I love CoSpaces just a ton. And CoSpaces had some updates recently. A couple of them, this one I don't know, but Corey, this might be something that you know. Do you know what FBX is?
I don't.
FBX format. So CoSpaces now lets you upload models in FBX format. I have no idea what that means. I'm just mentioning it because maybe someone out there does. But the other thing that it has is the ability to add a path for your items that you're animating, which is kind of nice. So you can put that path straight in there, and you can find that in the special objects in the CoSpaces EDU library. This is what I thought was really neat, though, is that now it has an integrated Google Poly search. So you can pull in 3D objects from Google Poly, which I think is kind of neat. I've been to Google Poly a couple times. I'm like, what do you do with this stuff? What are people doing with Google Poly? I thought, here's a purpose for Google Poly.
Yeah. Well, it looks like FBX comes from Autodesk.
Yeah, real-time update.
So that would be similar to Poly, I think. I don't know.
It says here's 3D animation software file. So
I don't know what that means, though.
Well, but in CoSpaces, if it's a three-dimensional object, then you can
would fit in that
give it a
virtual
path.
reality world.
So it's a little bit of app smashing-ish, right? Yeah. That kids could design something in Autodesk and then bring it into CoSpaces.
Interesting. So anyway, CoSpaces has really done a lot of stuff just recently, because we in the past had talked about CoSpaces with, what are those little block things? I can't figure out what their purpose is. Merge cubes. There it is. Yeah. CoSpaces and Merge Cube have a relationship now, and yeah, I love CoSpaces.
There's interesting stuff on Twitter. I haven't played with CoSpaces a lot. That's on my to-do list. Yeah. Hopefully in December. Fingers crossed. But I've been seeing on Twitter teachers, or it's Twitter or Facebook. I'm in a CoSpaces Facebook group, so that may be where I saw it. But just showing kind of some really interesting ways of using the merge cubes with CoSpaces. So I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, the only thing about this, and I think I've said this before, is that CoSpaces allows you to put your world out in AR anywhere without the merge cube.
Yes.
So, and that's to me much cooler than the merge cube itself. But
is that to bring it to give kids something that's tactile?
More
I wonder.
Tangible. I don't know. I mean, that you can. I don't know. Because that's
AR,
pretty cool too.
AR
the AR part of merge or of CoSpaces is pretty cool. Okay, like creating your world and then it's just out. I don't know.
And this
I think that's really neat.
This is kind of a sidebar on that, but this almost made the Nugget episode, but I didn't know enough about it to talk about it, so maybe Corey could have talked about it. But Geogebra has an AR app too.
They do?
Have you seen that? So you can make like a 3D graph or something in Geogebra, and you could put that into a physical space so that kids can look all around it and see up and from different angles and what that looks like.
I saw that was on the list and you skipped it, and I was like, I didn't understand why that would have been Tech Nugget, because I think we've talked about it before, but so that's interesting.
Yeah, you can visualize your graphs in 3D space, I guess.
Interesting.
Or multiple kids could,
Yeah, right.
Well, and I think those are really hard concepts for kids.
Hard to visualize,
Yeah, and to understand what that means. I mean, I just think because of getting a computer science degree, I had to take a lot of advanced level math. And I still have very visceral memories of being like 20 and going like, oh, that's what my high school, that's what my teacher was talking about. Like, now it makes sense. Sure. And I was a successful student. It was just like all of a sudden it clicked and it was like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, because I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I could complete the assignments, but I think that would be really neat. I want to try that with some kids now.
It should have been a Tech Nugget. Now you're regretting that you didn't put it on.
Extra nugget.
Yeah, extra nugget. Nugget crumb. So that moves us on to our main course. Up next, Start to You Piping Hot, Computer Science in Schools, ready to go for Computer Science Week, coming up first week of December.
The 3rd through the 9th.
3rd through the 9th. So that's, next week, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Corey, you have a really special background, like you had mentioned, that you have a computer science background, which really fills, I think, a huge void in our team because none of us have a computer science background, really. So you've really done a great job of kind of getting us started. And just recently, like this year, right, Iowa has now has computer science standards.
Yeah, so Iowa adopted standards. It's June or July. I don't know the date. Yeah. Somebody can fact check me. But so June, I think there's been a workforce that's been ongoing work for a while. And they selected standards and we've adopted them as a state. So it's really exciting. There's a roadmap, I think. When I first started teaching computer science, there wasn't much. And so you kind of go off what you know and what your experience is, what you think is important for kids. So I think it's exciting, but that's nerdy. But I think it's exciting that there's a roadmap for teachers to say, here's kind of the scope and sequence, and here's the scaffolds that we need to help kids be successful.
And just recently, Corey, and I don't know if you knew this, Wiley, but Corey came into Tech Coaches, and we kind of did a walkthrough of the computer. We did a jigsaw of sorts.
Yes, we did a jigsaw.
The Grantwood AA jigsaw. And kind of did a walkthrough with those and paired them with the nicely paired with the ISTE standards. And I think what's interesting, and I know I've heard you say this before, is that a lot of times the misconception is that computer science is just coding.
Yeah.
But it's not. There's more to it than that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we would find in our computer science standards?
Yeah. So I think it's also interesting, the word coding. So I don't feel like my degree is that old. And so it was programming when I went through.
Sure.
So just the shift in language that's been really quick is interesting to me. But so, yeah, I think the hard part for teachers is that because of our code, which is phenomenal and has been great about building excitement and awareness, but people have this really narrow vision of computer science. And so what I really like about the standards that Iowa adopted is there's 5 core concepts, and only one of those really is focused on coding.
Right.
And that's algorithms and programming. So one of them is about computing systems. And so that's really more about like network and hardware. I'm going to bring them up so I don't misspeak. Let me bring them up in front of me. But so computing systems talks a lot about devices, hardware troubleshooting. So just helping kids to be able to do that. So Jonathan and I were in Central City working with a couple of teachers and went into a kindergarten classroom, and the kids had iPads and they were struggling with a keyboarding app. And what was really interesting and exciting was that some of those kids, not all of them, but some of the kids they knew enough to know, like, okay, the app froze, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to close it, I'm going to restart it. And so I think that teachers are already doing a lot of the work that's in the standards,
right?
Because it's what we do as humans. It's problem solving and critical thinking. They just don't recognize that they're doing that, but they're teaching kids those skills. And so I've also said this a lot, but I feel like a lot of this is like demystifying the standards. Like, how do we help teachers to understand these aren't scary standards? And I think that's what I'm most passionate about for kids too, is that I don't want them to think computers are magic, because they're not. It's a device. It's electronic, and it can be programmed and controlled. And so how do we help to demystify that for kids so that whether they become a computer programmer or not, when they look at these devices, they can ask really good critical questions and be informed enough to kind of go like, I don't think that's how that works. Yeah, right. And I don't know as a society that we're as much there as I would like us to be, because we haven't really focused on teaching kids just the basics. What's there. So, so there's computing systems. Networks and the internet really is network infrastructure, which I took classes on. Sure. It was not my favorite, to be real honest, but I have enough baseline information that I can ask questions and make that work. But so thinking about like cybersecurity, which is really important. And we've got in Iowa, at Iowa State, they've got a really strong program there.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and there's a board member on the STEM Council out of Iowa State, and I'm going to draw a blank on his name, so it's terrible, but he does really great work around cybersecurity and does national work with the government, but then he also has a competition for high school kids that they can come and start to learn those. So there's really cool opportunities for kids. Data and analysis is a really good one, I think, that connects to math and science. And so that one is really about getting kids to think about collecting and sorting and then analyzing data. Data analysis, I think, is a great connection to math and science because it gets kids and teachers to collect data, sort it, analyze it. I guess we've been in Central City a lot, so I hate to keep using that one. But when I talk to teachers there, like kind of talking about like, so K-1, 2 teachers always have a weather unit somewhere in there, right? Where like they ask kids to collect the weather. That's a great way. And whether you do it with sticky notes or a pictograph or you use Excel to start to create a bar chart, it doesn't have to be on the computer, but you're getting kids at that thinking about, okay, how do I collect the data? How do I organize it? How could I store it in a way that's meaningful for kids?
And so looking for patterns, right?
Yeah, you're looking for patterns. You're looking for ways that you can abstract different ideas and chunk that into smaller pieces. Right.
And that's one of those ones where you can hit 2 sets of standards at once. You can do your math standards and your computer science standards.
Well, and you could get at tech standards. I mean, I think it's just ripe for teachers to really, I mean, not that it should be about checking off the boxes, but I think to me, it's more about, can I engage kids in really thinking critically and getting excited about it, having it be meaningful. I think to me, that was the appeal of computer science. I always loved the sciences and I loved math and I also loved music. And so now as an adult, when I think about it, like it's really about pattern, right? It's there. But computer science was the first time where I was kind of like, oh, I can do something with this. Like I can be productive and use this love of math, but make something that is productive in life and not just, like solving theorems in math class. Not so fun.
No.
Not at all.
Not at all.
So then the next concept that's there is algorithms and programming. And that's, again, I think has a lot of really good connections to other content areas, but that's typically the coding. Right. So that's your controls and variables and algorithms. Samantha Dalby that I know you guys have had on. So I went and back and listened. So trying to not, but Samantha, I can't remember where we're at, but made a really good connection of saying like, she's working with teachers and just saying like, recognize where your algorithms in your class are. Algorithms just a to-do list essentially. Right. So getting teachers to recognize like, you might be a kindergarten teacher. You have algorithms everywhere because you have routines and you have checklists. Yeah, your
procedures and stuff. Yep.
Yeah, so all those things. And then I think about the blended learning work when I was in the last blended class. I mean, really, that's what you're helping kids do is, so a lot of times we talk about abstraction and computer science. So we take big problems and we just keep paring them down into smaller, palatable chunks of work that I can do. Well, that's what teachers do every day, right? We have all this big work and we make tons of decisions in a day. Well, really, that's abstracting. You're taking all this work you need to do, you're making it into palatable chunks, and then you kind of create routines or whatever. Well, that's what computer scientists do. And so this fear of, I'm not a coder, it's like, well, you are. You're just not typing a language in.
Yeah, right.
But you're doing the thinking that is there.
I have no idea what algorithms are or variables and abstractions and things like that you were talking about. It sounds like another world kind of stuff. And it's like you're saying, it's making that, come to life in terms of things you're already doing and what that really means.
Well, and when I was a brand new teacher, I read a book called Choice Words. Have you guys read that book? It's really short read, but it just talked about being intentional about language. So like in my classroom, I called my students engineers. Mm-hmm. So just being intentional about the language that you use. And I feel like there's some of that too, is like, so as a classroom teacher, I can start to be intentional about language and helping kids see connections. And so I feel like that's part of our work, and what I'm trying to do this year is figure out what teachers need. But I think a lot of it's about language. Yeah. Stacy and I have talked about just kind of making a list kind of like that to say like algorithm. Here's the technical definition. Here's a bunch of real life examples of what that looks like in your classroom. Is it a routine? Is it lining up? Is it the checklist? Is, whatever teachers have in their rooms to help do that.
That's good. That's a great idea. I
like that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I'll get that done at some point. And then the last one is impacts of computing. And this is where our friend Lynn gets super excited. Because this feels a lot like digital citizenship to me, but it is a piece that was missing, at least in my education, is thinking about the impacts. So if I design an app like Facebook, what are the impacts of that on mental health, on elections, on news cycles? And so to me, it's like the unintended consequences thing. And I think that our kids, like my own children, are super aware of that kind of stuff. So I think it's about providing a space that you require kids to be reflective about it, but also having a classroom environment that allows that type of conversation to feel safe. And
which is happen. Still a lot of like if then, right? Like if I create this, then, what are the pros of this? What are the cons of this? I mean,
it's nothing new. It's back to I worked with this. I worked with a counselor who used BBots to do social stories, and they had the Making STEM Connections scale up in Iowa. Okay, and it's a mobile cart. It goes around the classroom. So she was trying really hard to incorporate that. And so she kind of had this epiphany of like, well, when kids come to a conflict with another kid, it's an if-else statement, right? So if I do this, what are the potential consequences? What are the potential outputs that happen? And so she had the kids program the bot. So like, I have a conflict with a friend. I choose to hit them. What happens? And they would follow this kind of like logic tree. She made like the Bebop map. Yeah. But like those are great ways to get kids to think, but also be tactile, also be thinking about logic and sequence. So I think there's tons of creative ways. Teachers are super smart and come up with creative ways to engage kids. It's just about helping them to have the tools and the resources to do that.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to have with older kids on things like the ethics, because the more and more things that we are getting technology to do, the more it raises a lot of ethics questions. Like, for instance, like, we talk about artificial intelligence and how that is learning, and that learns because we feed it data and it does stuff with that data, but that data has to come from people. And so what are the ethics? I mean, where's the dividing line between how much data we're shoveling up to these big tech companies and how much is, good and bad, or things like self-driving cars and the dilemmas and decisions they have to make if they're coming down the road and it's difference between either somebody swerves out in front of them. Do they hit the pedestrian or do they drive into a tree and potentially kill the driver? What is the decisions that the technology should be making and things like that? So I don't know. So it makes me think anyway.
And I think that's would be the intention, right? Yeah. I'm a big fan of throwing questions out there and letting people wrestle with them. And for kids, too. I like to do it with the educators. I think that's kind of a nice part of our job, is I can throw it out and say, what do you think? I can't have all the answers. I mean, we certainly didn't know what would happen. Like, I have a very clear memory of being on campus when Google came out, and it was a big deal. Like, we were all really excited about it. And, nobody knew it was going to turn into this, what it is today. Yeah. And so we can't predict it, but we certainly can engage intellectually with the questions and ask kids to do that. And I think that's what impacts of computing is.
Sure.
And so you look at those standards, and 1/5 of them is about the coding language. And I feel like that's a lot of the questions I get asked is like, what's the language? What's the platform? What's the device? So like the physical computing device right now, I don't feel like, but you guys should correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not getting a lot of questions about like, how do I engage kids in conversation about the impacts of computing? Or how do we address the networking and infrastructure piece of these? And I think that's about awareness. So that's, the standards are brand new. So I'm not trying to make judgment, but it's going to be interesting to see how we engage and support each other with that work, I think, for teachers.
So these standards have been around for a little while. They're kind of like voluntary standards that Iowa's adopted, kind of similar to like ISTE standards that we use for technology, things like that. Well, why is it becoming important now that we have these in place?
Well, I think that people are finally starting to realize that this is not going away, and that we all need a base knowledge. I mean, this is Corey's. I don't have a...
Hey, that's why you're here. We're asking Corey.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's honestly a little bit frustrating because I got a computer science degree in 2003. I mean, I guess I've always felt like this is important for our kids to know. I do think that part of it is that the devices are so ubiquitous, right? Like my cell phone is sitting here. I'm always on a device. We were on vacation last week and we had our devices out to be navigating what we were doing. Like, you don't really even get a break anymore on vacation kind of stuff. So I think there's a big push in knowing that as like AI and robots continue to be more widespread, that we have to have a knowledge of computer science to engage and be critical thinkers and to create entertainment and media. That's kind of where I'm at. And I think that what I believe is that you have to be knowledgeable to look at it and make sense of it. Like, I can't 100% translate looking at like HTML for a website, but I know enough to make sense of it and to follow paths through it or any piece of coding. And I guess that would be my hope for teachers and students, is that they've got enough baseline knowledge to make sense of it. Like with Jonathan's French, I took French in high school for a couple of years. I knew petite was small. Like I have enough that I can grasp onto it and make sense of it. And that's what I would hope for our kids. So I think that's where it's coming from. I think code.org helps. There's positive momentum there. I think especially in Iowa, our governor is very focused on STEM and creating a workforce that will bring industry into our state, and computer science is a big part of that. So in Iowa, we've got like, we should ask Samantha, so I'll mess it up. But there are hundreds of jobs in Iowa that are unfilled because we don't have people that have the computer science expertise that is necessary to help the businesses. So I think there's some of it that is also economic based too.
Yeah, we have the governor's Iowa STEM Council is set up for that kind of stuff. So yeah, we have a focus on there. Yeah, for sure.
Good job, Iowa. So and I think this is so important, that's why I want to keep bringing it up, is that computer science is not just coding. So you talked about the 5 different, what do you call them?
Concepts.
Yep,
concept
okay.
areas.
I was going to say areas, but okay. So the 5 different concepts. If people in the Grantwood area are looking to look more at these standards or learn more about the computer science, how would they do that?
Well, they can contact one of our team members, and then they're going to point you to me. Probably.
Yeah, we're just going to forward your email.
So we're working really hard to provide support to districts. So we have a workshop in February that's planned, February 12th, and what we would really like is for schools to bring a team. So we'd like them to bring an administrator. We'd like them to bring instructional or tech coaches, and then bring teachers from their different grade levels, so elementary, middle, high, or whatever the configuration is, to dig into the standards and start to put a plan together. I think for me right now, I think that's the most important part is that let's kind of work together, get a basic understanding, kind of like we did with tech coaches, basic understanding that there's these 5 concepts that are there. And then at our workshop in February, the team that's working together, and it's not just our tech team. So Amber and I from the tech team are on there, and Stacy and Keith, one of our RAs, our regional administrators, are leading it. But then there's math consultants and science consultants, and Diana, who's one of the teacher librarians, is there. But we're trying to make it be a little more interdisciplinary. But the other part of that work is that what we want to do is help schools also recognize, like, here's the stuff we're already doing. Right. That either A, meets these standards, or B, needs a tiny tweak. So if it's calling my routines an algorithm, or at least helping make that connection.
Right.
But then also recognizing where their gaps are so that we can share as a large group. So if there's 5 or 6 different districts there, we can get ideas from each other. But then for us as a team, we'll see where the gaps are and we can start to plan. Like, what is the learning that teachers need?
Yeah, what support do we need to provide?
Because I feel like as a team, you guys have done a ton of stuff that's coding adjacent. And so now I think it's just about saying, okay, so let's be a little more intentional about making sure we have a plan. And then how do we expand on that? Because between the work with Spheros and Makey-Makeys and hummingbirds, like that, all that makerspace stuff is really building a foundation for kids, I think, and is a good way to engage kids in the coding. Now we've just got to kind of expand that out a little bit.
So our code coming up December 3 through the 9. I put ish after that because it kind of, some people do it in that week and other people do it kind of around that week. Is that fair to say?
Should do it all the time.
Yeah,
right. Okay. For sure.
Right. We always say that. Like, we talk about our code. Like, please, you could do that kind of stuff all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's hard about an event, right? Is that you want it to keep going. And so, so our code week is always the same week as Computer Science Education Week, which is a good way to get schools excited about it. But you could do this anytime or have it be a recurring event. So what we're doing this year is just trying really hard to get schools engaged. We're asking our Grantwood schools to register with us so that we know who's doing it. And we're working really hard to kind of get a better sense of what is the coding that's getting taught, and where are the gaps, so that we can provide some learning for educators that really fits the need of what what is missing. And I think we're super fortunate to have New Boco and Samantha and Ann Nicholson that works with her. I don't want to provide stuff for teachers that's already out there.
Yeah, right.
So let's, kind of diversify a little bit, make sure it's what they need. But this year, our code is all about creativity and dancing, which is really fun. And so I'm hoping that we'll get some Grantwood schools sending us some video or GIFs of them dancing. My 9-year-old son was super excited. He's a big fan of the floss and the dab. Yeah. And so that's there, right? Your kids do. So, and I think it's a nice way. I think sometimes people's mental picture of a programmer is someone that sits all day and isn't active. And I know that to not be true. Sure. At least in my experience. And so I think it's a fun way of having it be an active kinesthetic piece.
Absolutely.
So
that might tie in with this then. I'm looking at this Hour of Code participation guide, which we'll link to in the show notes. And step 3 says, plan your technology needs. Computers are optional.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Well, so there's lots of unplugged activities if you go to Our Code, where kids can be coding each other. It's really fun to see videos on Twitter, like Code the Teacher. I used to do, which is pretty classic, like the make a peanut butter sandwich, right? So I'd have my kids write the directions, and then I would follow the directions they gave me. And it was a hot mess because they wouldn't tell you to open the jar of peanut butter, or they wouldn't tell you how much, like their directions wouldn't be concise, which is what is necessary when you're giving directions. And so there's lots of examples on Our Code. And I put together some s'mores in the grade bands that the standards are at. So the computer science standards, which I guess we didn't say, are grade banded. So there's K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9, 12. When you go to the Our Code website, it's a lot. So I think it's the 5th or the 6th year. I can't remember anymore. But there are way more resources than anybody can weed through. Yeah. And so what I tried to do for our schools and anybody that wants to use them in the s'more is to pick 3 online activities that I thought were really strong and engaging for kids, but then 3 unplugged or offline activities that the directions were really clear. It'd be really easy for a teacher to grab, not have to do a ton of planning, and engage the kids in. And so those are on our digital learning team website under computer science.
Hey, they were one of my tech nuggets last time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so those are there for teachers, but you can filter through their website and look for unplugged, or you can do it by content area. I don't think I'm making that up. I think that's there now, like math or science based. So there's tons of stuff for teachers to do that they can feel natural and feel comfortable with. So it's not that you have to pick Scratch if you're not comfortable with Scratch. You can pick something that you feel confident engaging the kids in.
Yeah, I think these are exciting times.
Yes.
And
Exciting times.
I think even at this time of year, one of our good friends shared this on Twitter the other day, that this is the time where teachers are starting to turn to like DVDs to give their kids.
Oh,
yes. When, you know, there's so many other great things we could do. We could do stuff like this, and this would be much more engaging and interesting for them, I think.
Yeah, it's a good tweet.
Yeah.
It was a great tweet. And they could do paired programming, right?
Yes.
So they could do it together and be collaborating with each other and learning from each other. It'd be phenomenal to engage kids that way.
A month of code. How about that?
A month of code.
Well, it'd be like Gina's Codevember for November. So I don't know what Code December is. I'm not good at that stuff. I'm glad Gina's on the team. She's so good at that stuff.
Decode?
Decode?
Yeah,
whatever.
We'll let her figure it out.
Or just code all the time. I mean, that would be the other option.
Corey would be fine with that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
Yeah.
All right, up next is my favorite part of the show, Tech Nuggets.
As we stare across the table at each other, wondering who's going to go first.
Who will go first? Why don't you go?
Okay.
Okay.
In a previous episode, we shared the closed captioning for Google Slides.
This is correct.
And so I happened to come across this. I don't even remember where I found it, but it's been around for a while. I thought I'd share it. There is an add-in for PowerPoint, Windows only, and it's called the Microsoft Presentation Translator for PowerPoint. And it's free, and basically does a very similar type of thing. It will do live closed captions for you. It's got a few other features, though, that it can take advantage of. For instance, people can follow along with your captions on a mobile device or on a website by going to translate.it and entering the code for your presentation. So I guess that could help people with visual impairments, that they could maybe not necessarily see your captions on the front there because they're so far away, that they could see them on their screen. It also has the ability to translate your captions in live subtitling. So if you were giving an audience to some French speakers, let's stick with the French language, and you didn't speak French, then I don't know how good a translation this would actually be, but it can do that translation part for you. So, or maybe if you had some ESL kids in your room and you're just talking about it and you feel like all the other kids are able to get it and understand you audibly, then you could have some, Spanish subtitles or something on while you were presenting.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting to me because you think about it, like, I know, English, you sometimes have to listen to the whole sentence because taking Spanish for a couple years, you had to know what that whole sentence was before you could actually construct the Spanish sentence.
Yes.
Because they say things differently and their structure is different. So that to me is interesting. Like, is it in real time or is it slightly delayed?
It is slightly delayed.
It's got to be slightly delayed.
Yes. And
it's awesome, though.
Yeah, and the other thing it does, which I think is kind of interesting too, is you can translate your entire PowerPoint into another language. So you just save a version of it in French, save a version in Spanish, and it will I did it, and it was kind of interesting. I don't know if it was good, but
I was going to say, so how do we check it to make sure
you need a modern foreign language teacher or somebody to help you with that, I guess. But it definitely was French words that it put on the screen.
Well, it definitely put French words on there.
Yeah. So, So it's an interesting option. It's free if you want to play with it, or if you prefer PowerPoint to Google Slides. It's a free add-on for Windows.
Nice. Well, yesterday I had a request from support staff from a school, and they wanted a form where teachers could upload and attach receipts to be reimbursed.
Makes sense.
Yes. So I'm like, yes, of course you can do that. So I'm playing with it because I'd never done it before because I never had a purpose, I guess. I'm playing with it and I'm like, how does this work? So in case you're not aware, the way this works is when you create a form and ask people to attach a doc or an image or something like that, what happens then is that there is a folder created in your Google Drive named after the form itself. So let's say you call your form demo. That's what I called mine. Demo receipts, okay? I have a folder in my Google Drive called Demo Receipt Responses. Then inside that folder, I have another folder that's named the question that I asked that I wanted attachments in.
Okay.
Okay. So when I go into that folder, all of my response attachments are in that folder. Now, you asked a really good question because I noticed this too, and maybe there's a way around it, but when I go into that folder, I don't know what attachment belongs to what person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
From what I saw, it's not. Now, the only thing I wondered is because it was me responding to my own form, if there was something there, like if you would have responded to the form, I don't know, because I attached my name to it, you know, like that was my first question was name. My second one was, you know, please attach your receipt or whatever. But so I'm not really sure how that looks. However, the other thing you can do is go into your form in the edit mode and go to the responses tab, and there it would say Mindy Carney with my attachment next to it. And you can also click on a little button that says view folder, and I could go in there. You can also, because Google always has 3 ways to do everything, I feel like. You can also, of course, create that spreadsheet. It creates a link to that image or doc or whatever,
of course,
in your folder. Mm-hmm. So then it has my name and the link.
That makes sense.
That was all new to me. I mean, I knew it did it. I guess I just didn't know the organization of it.
Yes, me too. It was one of those things that I knew was there, but I'd never had the opportunity or reason to use it. Yeah. And I'm glad you did.
Yeah, me too. It took me about... I looked for a while, like, what's going on here? I can't understand this. So
I think sometimes the hard part is we're trying to use Google Forms like it's a database. And it's not. I mean, really. But so we just create lots of workarounds.
Yes, that's true. Yes. So there it is.
Cool.
I don't know if that's a nugget, but it was a aha for me yesterday.
It's a nugget.
Yeah.
That counts.
It's an aha nugget. Okay. Next. What you got?
I picked the next one for you, Mindy. I thought you might like this. I saw this going around Twitter in a few different places. It's the Emoji Builder.
I know. I have to add this to the slide deck. Embracing the emoji.
Yes.
Yes.
You can create your own custom emojis on this website, which I think is kind of a fun thing to do.
Uh-huh.
You can choose different faces, and it takes a lot of, like, you know, the faces from... your popular emojis like cats and
the
clown and cowboys and just the standard yellow head. And you can choose mouths and you can choose eyes. What I think is interesting about the eyes is your left eye can be different from your right eye, but I guess that makes sense for like winking emoji and things like that.
And there's an XY axis.
There is an XY axis.
How cool is that?
I mean, you can like move
it's only cool for some of us, but
you can move your eye around to a different spot and different place.
Have you clicked the randomize? I just have and actually labels what your emoji is. So I hit randomize and it put a bunch of stuff on. It says neutral, weary face with robot eye and medical mask.
I got kissing, skeptical, crying face.
Super funny.
I got confused, pensive, smirking face. I think I could use that one.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should say that.
Although it looks a little...
Right,
anyway,
so
there's also...
and it downloads.
It downloads it as a PNG file. So you can save that to your computer and use that wherever you want. So you could have a custom emoji for your class or for you as a teacher or whatever you want to have.
Or like formative assessment.
Yeah.
How are you?
Yeah. How you feeling today?
So I think it's fun.
Good one.
And there is a thing at the top that also made me smile. It says assets, copyright Apple. Please don't sue me.
Please don't sue me. Ooh. Uh-oh.
So, hopefully it'll still be there when you click on the link. But we'll see. Yeah, they are very Apple emojis.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. Which, interestingly enough, I don't know if you've ever done this, and I only realized this after the Embracing Emoji slide deck, but if you use Apple emojis inside your Google slide deck, they look fine until you plug them into a projector of some sort, and then they all go goofy. Have you ever done this before? I use emojis all the time. Do you guys? No. Anyway, it makes them black, blobby, weird emojis.
But only when you're projecting?
Only when you're projecting. That is correct. So
that's
what
weird,
you have to
right?
do to make sure that doesn't happen is use it as a PNG instead. So you have to download them and then upload them.
And this will let
and
you.
And this would let you even create your own. Yeah.
And what I think is also interesting, I thought this is where you were going, but if you go to Emojipedia.
Yes.
What is that? Emojipedia?
It's Emojipedia. Yep.
Emojipedia. In there, you can see what the emojis look like on all the different platforms. Mm-hmm. So what does a laughing face look like on Apple phones? Right. What does it look like on Google phones? What does it look like on Microsoft phones? Samsung phones? Even WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, Messenger.
Because sometimes they change.
Yes.
Sometimes they don't mean the same thing.
They are all loudly crying face, it says here, but they all have different interpretations of what that looks like for their platform, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
it's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I actually have two. I have one that is just like a crumb of a nugget. And
crumb of a nugget?
Yes. And it's fine.
I don't think we've had those
just,
before.
So there's not much to say about it. I downloaded the Cool Lake app a couple weeks ago, and it's $3. I never spend that much on an app ever in my life. Ever. This is probably the most I've ever spent, minus the Minecraft app. Anyway, so I downloaded the Cool Lake app because 7 episodes ago, I recommended this more from Trisha Fogelstead that has all of those green screen ideas. Do you remember this, Wiley?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. On there, she had an idea of how to create a snow globe effect. And so I needed to create, or really wanted to, needed is relative, really wanted to create a snow globe effect. And I had to use the Cool Lake app because it will add weather to your still images. So you can add snow over top of an image, or rain, or like a lake or pool effect to your images, and then creates a little video of it. So I was creating a snow globe and had to have something that would do that. And I used the green screen by Doing app as well, and then it was a process, let me tell you. But anyway, so this little app really saved my day. So if you're doing something like that this winter, creating little snow globes, green screen effect, you're going to need the Cool Lake app, or you're going to be sadly disappointed. And it makes it live. Super fun. Anyway, my real nugget is this. So Stacy Beamer shared...
That was a nugget.
That was a nugget.
I like it.
Okay, fine. It's kind of fun, but I always feel bad sharing something that you have to pay for. So there is this website called Ucubed, and Stacy had sent it actually to... I don't know. Did she send it to you guys? Is this familiar? Maybe she just sent it to me because I'm on the math. I communicate with the math team. Anyway, so she had sent this also to the math team, and we heard back from them that they really like this website. So I always feel a little nervous when I share content things because I'm not a content expert per se. So this Ucubed website, and you know how I always liked math more than I liked teaching ELA. I always thought math was awesome. The only thing about it is that now that I'm outside the classroom and have the ability to do some more learning, which is super weird how that all turns out. I wish I would have known more about teaching math strategies and knowing the right strategy to share at the right time. I felt like I never really had that skill set like I wish that I would have. So I was looking at this Ucubed website, and it has all kinds of resources that you can use with your students. There's lesson plans. There's some great articles. So if you're looking to kind of change or shift how math instruction is happening in your school, there's some great articles to read, some research, things like that. The one that I loved is Please Stop Doing Math Flashcards. That's one of my soapboxes I will not step onto today. But just lots of different things here that you could kind of take a look at and give you an idea of how to teach different math concepts. The one that I really liked was under Tasks and More. There's a week of inspirational math. And the first video that popped up was all about how to work through struggle and how important it is to struggle, and how kids will go out and do cartwheels 15,000 times until they get it right. But how do they apply that in the classroom and what it looks like in the classroom to stick through something like that? So I really liked those little videos. So yeah, just I think a great resource for teachers who are looking to kind of step up their math game but don't really know where to start. I feel like this is a great place to go. So they also have courses online that you can take. I didn't, of course, sign up for any of those because I don't need the credit or anything like that. But I did see that there was, it's only $100. And I always think that's not bad. And it said it was like 30 hours of professional development and stuff like that. So just a place to look if you're looking for something, something else.
Yeah. And it's Joe Bowler.
Joe Bowler.
Yeah.
Stanford, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But that's a name.
Stanford?
Like I know
right?
I know the math consultants I worked with.
Yes.
Loved her stuff.
Yes.
So that's always exciting when it's someone that you know is reputable. And,
yeah. So go and take a look at that. Click around.
It's a gold nugget.
Gold nugget.
Oh.
Well, I don't know about gold. Well, okay, maybe. Sure. I'll take it. Yeah. Gold nugget. All right.
Corey, tell us where people can find you and your stuff online.
I am on Twitter at Corey. It's COREY_Rogers, ROGERS.
Awesome.
And that's the only place you can find her, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, not anywhere else.
Nowhere else.
I'm not on the Instas. I'm not on the Snaps because I'm old now. I'm on. Yeah, go ahead.
She's also writing on the digital learning blog, dlgwaea.org.
Yep. And
Keeping us up to date.
Yeah, we'll put all of those s'mores and the links to that computer science page too.
Yes.
In the show notes. Okay. I am at Team Carney on Twitter, and Jonathan is at Jonathan Wiley. Our team account is at DLGWAA, and you can use our hashtag EdTechTakeout to tag the show. If you prefer, you can send us an email to podcast@gwaa.org because Wiley checks it, and I do not.
Correct. I read all your fan mail and just ignore it.
Oh, I'm sure you do. All my fan mail, please.
So until next time.
This has been the EdTech Takeout. We hope it hit the spot.
For more information on today's episode, please visit dlgwaea.org/podcast.
And when we worked at Central City,
there's a man in the vent.
I'm going to take that opportunity to clear my
Yeah,
throat.
you can. Go for it.
What is it?
I don't know.
I think you're right. It's Mel Gibson in Die Hard. Is he the one in Die Hard?
No,
It's
it's Bruce Willis.
Bruce Willis.
You know, the famous Christmas movie.
Yes.
Die Hard.
Yeah.
How did that become a Christmas movie? Anyway.
Because it happened at Christmas time, didn't it?
It's like Star Wars to me is Christmas.
Yeah.
How was Star Wars Christmas?
Because there's always a movie that comes out in December, just not this year.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
And last year, I guess it came out in May. But there for a while, they were coming out, I feel like, every December so that they could continue to pop out Star Wars merchandise. It's a good
for
time.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Super cynical.
Mm-hmm. So data analysis.
Yeah, so let's go back to... So data analysis, I think, is a great